our next topic is the judging philosophy. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is a judging philosophy, Alexei? Is it about like how we think about skateboarding, or what does it mean?
Well, first is, the main thing for the judging philosophy is that there's no discrimination of any kind at all. You can't base your judgment and your scores on racial, religious, political, or national
Or social background?
parameters. No,
All
yeah,
right.
it's really important. You have to treat everyone the same way, no matter if they are, tall, small,
That makes
slim.
perfect sense. It kind of
That's
corresponds with the Olympic values that we
exactly.
accepted and inherited and implemented to the competitive environment.
Yeah, and I think skateboarding is all about that as well, because there's no particular or standard shape for being a skater. You know,
Hmm.
there's no skin color to be a good skater or a bad skater. So you can't base your judgment on all these things.
And
That's the
that was kind of the spirit of skateboarding when we started. I
Yeah,
would say, like,
yeah,
when you were a skater, you were
exactly.
accepted within the community, no matter
Yeah,
how you look, what you did. You were a skater and you were there. So
exactly.
that kind of makes sense, Alexei, when we talk about the judging philosophy, like the fairness and equality and inclusion. All these principles are great, and they just basically embody the values that were uh, internally part of skateboarding since its beginning. But
Exactly.
when it comes to judging, like, uh,
So when it comes to
what are the other things, or what can we imagine when we say judging philosophy in you know in the
so the
process
most
actual?
yeah, the most important in the process of judging is that you got to keep in mind that you're judging a moment in time. You're judging an athlete's performance at a certain moment, and you got to compare this performance to the other athlete's performance at that time. Even if you know the athlete and oh, it was much better the other day, or I know this guy for 10 years and I know he can do
So
better tricks
basically,
than what he's
when I
done
see
today.
someone performing his run, for example, and he bails during the run, but I know that he has been doing the trick the day before in the practice session like that, and it was there, and I really want to
Then
see him to make the cut, and I'm like, he's gonna do it with the next try, like. So this is not how it works.
no, it's sad for him, but he was having a 45 seconds run. He didn't make it happen. You, as a judge, you should judge what you've seen for these 45 seconds. You can't
Okay.
assume this guy is so good. Oh, that's a shame. He can't be making the cut, so he's not going to be part of the finals. No, that doesn't exist. That used maybe to be sometimes the case in the non-sanctioned events back in the days, and still in some other events nowadays in skateboarding. But you can't be judging someone out of what he represents for you. You have to
Hmm.
judge that person on that moment that is given to him to give
Or
his
based
performance.
on what he could have or should have or is
Exactly.
capable of doing. All right, that makes sense. It's just like the everyone has to be judged fair for what he or she did in front of the judge's eyes that day in that event phase or in that event round.
Yeah,
Correct?
and that's exactly that, and that's how you're gonna shape the progression and the evolution of competitive skateboarding results.
How do we know that we are doing the right thing?
Well, it's based on the judging criterias, of course, and also on skateboarding common sense, pretty
Aha,
much.
okay. So maybe we should focus a little bit on what those things are. And I think we should start by explaining what the skateboarding common sense is. What does it actually mean? I've been hearing many things from all around, and people think skateboarding common sense is that, skateboarding common sense is that. Like, I know that when we say, hey, this is a common sense, it's something that it's natural. This is what it means, that expression. But when it's applied to skateboarding, what does it mean, Alexei? Can you explain a little bit? And then we're gonna focus on the kind of more definition of that term. But let's talk about like, where can you get the skateboarding common sense? Can you buy it? Can you study it? Can you exchange it with someone? Or where does it come from? How do you can get it? Where do you can get it? Can you can you do that?
So it ties back to what we said, on the what should be the character of a skateboard judge in the beginning of the presentation. It has to come from experience of skateboarding. It is key to understand all the parameters of a trick on a spot. There's the size of the spot, there's the quality of the ground, there's the length of the run up, there's how is the landing ground, it is if the ledge or the rail or the pool coping is sliding or grinding enough, or all that stuff. So that's really important to know these things. But to know these things, you should be a skater and you should have experienced them, because sometimes you're looking at something on a video, and it doesn't look so big. And then when you arrive at the spot, wow, damn, it's much bigger than what you thought
Oh
about
yeah,
it when
or
you looked at the
that's
video.
what I was thinking, and kind of meant like, can you study it? Can you analyze it? Because there's a lot of people who overanalyze and dissect everything in skateboarding today. But you can measure the length of the rail, you can measure the speed, you can measure the size of the stairs, and you can count the percentage of how many times out of 10 is this athlete doing the trick down those stairs or on that obstacle. But without the personal experience and knowing how hard it is, and you never know actually how does it feel. and
Yeah, you should be able to relate to that
and
as
this is
as as
this
a
is
person.
this is something that I remember from, like you said, like from watching the videos. Like, we were watching videos growing up, and there was this amazing spot on the video, and we were like, "Wow, this is great!" And the guy who had the profile did an ollie, and we were like, "Wow, that's kind of like disappointing. He just did the ollie. The spot is perfect." And then later on in lives, uh, I had the opportunity to visit that spot. And when I saw the spot, I was like, wow, this guy is a hero, because just doing the ollie here, it's super gnarly. And that kind of changed the perspective on that
Exactly.
particular spot, but also like on the tricks that you can do there. And another thing, it looked completely different on the TV screen than when I was standing there.
Exactly.
So is
Exactly.
this
So that's
something, when you talk about the skateboarding common sense, like the personal experience helps you to not only relate but also compare the difficulty, and what is possible, what it's not, what is hard, what it's not on certain types and kinds of obstacles in a certain environment, because everything changes. Nothing
yeah,
is
exactly.
standardized in skateboarding.
No. It's a mix. Like if you're able to stay up to date with the global level of
Hmm.
nowadays skateboarding, and also um, know exactly, or study, or look exactly at how the spot it is. And we're gonna see it later in the presentation. But there's an important component of being a judge, is to analyze the field of play, the skate park, the
Hmm.
different obstacles and all that. If you mix that with having this knowledge and be able to relate to it as a skater, because um, as a skater that is difficult to prepare your feet, for example, because the run up is short
Hmm.
for that kind of trick on that spot, then it helps you to have this common sense and evaluate what should be possible to do, and then be able to compare between
Hmm.
two tricks or two runs from two different athletes, because you're utilizing the non-deniable facts
Hmm.
that are your tools
Makes
to
perfect sense.
propose the
And it's
judgment.
also like sometimes, knowing the mechanics of each tricks help
Yeah,
to identify them much better because, hey, as a judge, you don't sit right next to the skater. You cannot
no,
zoom in and pause the video, so to say, but
yeah,
you need to know when the trick happens and what it actually was
yeah,
when it happened. And I guess that makes the skateboarding common sense pretty important. Uh,
it is.
what would you what would you say like how to work and improve and strengthen your skateboarding common sense as a judge? What would you suggest to the aspiring judges? How to work on themselves to make it better and more accurate?
Well, if you're still an active skater, I would say skate. You
Hmm.
know, that's really important. Skate and know and be stay connected with what's the current standards of skateboarding, what are the tricks, the trends, and etc. And when you're at an event, if you can, and normally there's at sanctioned event, there's the possibility of visiting and having a walk on the skate park, on the field of play, but you can also sometimes actually skate it yourself.
Hmm.
And this is really important, and sometimes that makes the difference,
Yeah.
because you're going to see, even by looking at the ledge, for example, and the size of a ledge on a street course. You can be like, yeah, maybe in my good days I would have been able to do a nose blunt slide on it, and then you skate the spot, you get warm up, and then you realize you can't even like jump on that because that's much bigger than what you thought
Oh, yeah.
by just looking at it. And you realize that the bank, or the obstacle that is before, is annoying, and you don't have the right angle to skate that spot
Or there is
correctly.
a crack right
So
before
when you
that.
see or there's a crack, exactly. And so when you see the actual competition, you're like, ooh, well, this kid has done that on that spot, this athlete has done that, and maybe it's much harder than what I thought when I saw the spot on video, or
Oh,
from
yeah.
my judging booth.
True that. And it's also like sometimes when you're approaching the obstacle as a skater skating them, they grow.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
they grow and they look much bigger the closer you are to them. And as a judge, when you're sitting in the judging booth, they look the same and they are very distant
Yeah,
and they don't look that hard. So
like
yeah.
the big mushrooms in that Tintin episode, huh?
Oh yeah.
They
But
start
hey,
with
that's like you
small and
said, skateboarding common sense combined with the constant preparation and self-improvement, working on that, following the uh, current skateboarding evolution and progression, being in the picture,
really
and
important.
field of play walkthrough, examination of obstacles,
Very important.
very important, and it will make your skateboarding common sense strong. You
And
will feel
sharper.
sharper and you will feel confident when doing a judging job. That makes sense. So we know now that we cannot study skateboarding common sense. We cannot buy it or
No,
we cannot
there's no
even
books.
borrow it. We need
No.
to grow it, foster it, and take care of it as a skaters. All
Yeah,
right, perfect. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And let's move to the next topic.